The storm had arrived suddenly, sweeping through the town with howling winds and sheets of rain that blurred the edges of the world. I had been driving through the winding countryside, my car packed with books, notes, and a half-finished thesis on ancient architecture. My destination was a small village tucked away in the hills, a place known for its ruins and folklore. But now, my journey had come to an abrupt halt. The storm had knocked a massive tree across the road, and my attempts to call for assistance were met with silence. No signal, no help. Just me, the storm, and the dense forest that seemed to press in from all sides. I had no choice but to seek shelter. Grabbing my coat and flashlight, I stepped into the downpour, the rain quickly soaking through my clothes. A faint path wound its way into the woods, and I followed it, hoping it might lead to a house or some sign of civilization. After what felt like an eternity, I saw it, a grand, crumbling structure hidden among the trees. Its towering arches and ivy-covered walls were both ominous and beautiful, a relic of another era. The building seemed out of place, as though it had been forgotten by time. As I approached, I noticed the intricate carvings on the stone. Gargoyles with hollow eyes stared down at me, their expressions twisted in grotesque mockery. The massive wooden doors creaked open under the weight of my push, revealing a cavernous interior filled with the scent of dust and damp stone. Inside, the space was vast, lined with towering shelves that reached into the shadows above. Books of all shapes and sizes filled the shelves, their spines marked with symbols and languages I didn't recognize. A grand chandelier hung from the ceiling, its candles long extinguished. Despite the eerie silence, I felt a strange pull, a magnetic force that urged me to explore. My flashlight swept across the room, revealing more details: ancient tapestries depicting strange rituals, statues of hooded figures holding scrolls, and a massive clock on the far wall, its hands frozen at midnight. "This must be a library," I whispered to myself, my voice barely breaking the oppressive stillness. I ran my fingers along the spines of the books, marveling at the craftsmanship. Many of the titles were indecipherable, written in a language I had never encountered. Others seemed to shift and shimmer as I tried to read them, the letters rearranging themselves into nonsensical patterns. The storm raged outside, but within the library it was unnaturally calm. Too calm. I felt as though the walls were alive, watching me, waiting for something. Suddenly, a noise echoed through the hall, a soft rustling, like the turning of a page. My heart raced. I spun around, my flashlight trembling in my grip. "Hello," I called out, my voice cracking. There was no response, but the sound continued. It was coming from deeper within the library. Against my better judgment, I followed it, weaving through the labyrinth of shelves. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to lengthen as I ventured further. Finally, I reached a small reading nook tucked into a corner. A single book lay open on a table, its pages fluttering as though caught in an invisible breeze. The words on the page glowed faintly, and as I stepped closer, I realized they were written in perfect modern English. "Welcome, seeker of knowledge. Beware the cost." The door slammed shut behind me, and the air grew thick with the scent of old parchment and something else, something metallic and sharp. I wasn't alone anymore. I froze, staring at the glowing words on the page. The air around me seemed to pulse, as if the library itself were alive. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and then went out, plunging me into near total darkness. Only the faint glow of the book offered any light, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The rustling sound grew louder, as if dozens of pages were being turned all at once. The shelves seemed to shift in the darkness, their towering forms leaning closer, hemming me in. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself, my breathing shallow and rapid. What is this place?" I whispered. The book responded, Its pages turned on their own faster than my eyes could follow. When they stopped, a new message appeared. You are in the archive of the forgotten. Knowledge lives here, but it demands a price. A shiver ran down my spine. My instinct screamed at me to leave, to turn back and escape this cursed place. But I was drawn to the words, to the strange, inexplicable pull that had led me here in the first place. My curiosity outweighed my fear. "What kind of price?" I asked aloud, my voice trembling. The book turned another page. Memories, dreams, time. The more you seek, the more you lose. Do you wish to proceed? I hesitated, the weight of the question pressing down on me. My mind raced with possibilities. What knowledge could this place hold? Answers to the mysteries of the world? Secrets lost to time? But at what cost? Before I could decide, the room shifted again. The walls seemed to ripple, and the shelves parted, revealing a narrow corridor that hadn't been there before. A dim, golden light flickered at the end, beckoning me forward. I stepped cautiously into the passage, the walls closing in behind me as I moved deeper into the library's heart. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling disappearing into darkness. In the center stood a circular table, surrounded by pedestals holding ancient tomes. Each book emitted a faint glow, and as I approached, I felt a strange sensation, a tugging at the edges of my mind, as though the books were reaching out to me. I could hear faint whispers, too soft to understand but persistent, like the hum of distant voices. One book in particular drew my attention. Its cover was black, embossed with a swirling golden pattern that seemed to move when I looked at it. My hand hovered over it, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. I hesitated. The words from the first book echoed in my mind. Knowledge demands a price. But I couldn't stop myself. I opened the book. The moment I did, the room exploded with light and sound. Images flooded my mind, visions of ancient cities, long-forgotten rituals, and faces I didn't recognize but felt I somehow knew. The knowledge poured into me, overwhelming and intoxicating. I saw things I had only dreamed of, secrets that could change everything. But with each revelation, I felt something slipping away. Memories of my childhood blurred and faded. The faces of loved ones grew distant, their names escaping me. I tried to hold on, to cling to what I was losing, but it was no use. The book's voice filled my mind, cold and unyielding. You chose this path, seeker. The cost has been paid. I dropped the book and stumbled back, my head spinning. The golden light dimmed, and the chamber seemed to shrink around me. The whispers grew quieter, retreating into the shadows. When I looked at the table again, the books were gone. The pedestal stood empty, and the room was silent. I was alone, and yet I wasn't the same. I couldn't remember why I had come here, or even my own name. All I knew was the library and the fragments of knowledge it had given me, a gift and a curse, intertwined. I stood in the now empty chamber, trembling as I tried to piece together my scattered thoughts. My memories were like shattered glass, sharp fragments I couldn't put back together. My name, my purpose, even my past had faded into a fog, replaced by fragments of knowledge I couldn't fully comprehend. But one thing was clear. I couldn't stay here. The library had already taken too much from me, and I wasn't willing to lose anything more. I turned to leave, but the chamber had changed. The walls were no longer solid. They pulsed and shifted, as though alive. The corridor I'd come through was gone, replaced by a twisting maze of shadows and faint glowing symbols etched into the air. Panic rose in my chest. "Let me out," I shouted, my voice echoing through the empty space. The library answered, but not with words. The symbols in the air began to move, spinning and intertwining to form a path that stretched into the distance. It wasn't an invitation, it was a test. I followed the glowing trail, my footsteps echoing on the stone floor. The air grew heavier with each step. and the whispers returned, louder this time. They spoke in languages I didn't understand, yet their meaning was clear. Go back. Stay. You belong here now. I pressed on, ignoring the pull to turn around. My flashlight had long since stopped working, but the faint glow of the symbols guided me. I passed towering shelves filled with books that seemed to watch me, their spines marked with unearthly glyphs. Statues of hooded figures loomed in the shadows, their stone faces twisted into expressions of warning or perhaps mockery. Finally, I reached a massive archway, its edges glowing with a golden light. Beyond it, I could see the storm still raging outside, the rain pounding against the earth. Freedom was just a few steps away, but as I approached the archway, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman draped in a flowing, tattered cloak. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes hollow yet piercing. She raised a hand, and I stopped in my tracks. "You cannot leave," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "The knowledge you carry binds you to this place." "I didn't ask for this," I said, my voice trembling. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. The woman's expression softened, but there was no sympathy in her eyes. "Few do. The archive reveals itself only to those who seek it. You came here for answers, and you received them. But the knowledge of the archive is not given freely. It demands a guardian." My heart sank as her meaning became clear. The whispers, the shifting walls, the pull to stay, they were all part of the library's trap. It lured seekers of knowledge, only to claim them as its own. "No," I said, shaking my head. "There has to be another way." The woman's gaze hardened. "If you leave, the knowledge you carry will destroy you. Your mind will unravel piece by piece until nothing remains. Stay, and you will have purpose. The archive will be your home, as it has been mine." I looked back at the storm beyond the archway, the taste of freedom so close yet so far. The thought of staying in this cursed place, bound to its endless corridors and ancient secrets, was unbearable. But the alternative to lose myself completely was just as terrifying. I can't," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I can't stay here." The woman sighed, a sound heavy with centuries of resignation. "Very well," she said, "but know this, you will carry the archive with you, whether you wish to or not. Its whispers will haunt your dreams. Its secrets will weigh on your soul. And one day, you will return. They always do." With that, she stepped aside, and the archway glowed brighter, beckoning me forward. I ran through the portal, the rain hitting my skin like 1,000 tiny needles. The storm was fierce, but it felt like liberation compared to the suffocating stillness of the library. I didn't look back, afraid that if I did, the woman's hollow eyes would be there, watching me. But even as I drove away, the whispers lingered. They spoke softly just below the edge of hearing, promising knowledge and power if I returned. And the books, they haunted my thoughts, their glowing symbols etched into my memory. Weeks passed, and though I was far from the library, I couldn't escape it. My mind was filled with visions of its twisting corridors and endless shelves. I tried to write down what I'd seen, hoping to make sense of it, but the words came out jumbled, as if the knowledge refused to be shared. I don't know how much longer I can resist its pull. The woman was right. The archive is part of me now. I see it in my dreams, feel its presence in the quiet moments, and I know, deep down, that I will return. Not because I want to, but because the library will call me back. It always does.